Hey everybody, welcome back to this episode of Think Sales Live with Jeff Gunsberg and myself. We're looking forward to talking to David Devries, Director of Development at Studio 74. A quick background on you, David. Experienced film and TV producer and executive, having developed and produced a wide range of projects, including major studio films, award-winning indie films, TV shows, digital series, and podcasts. Your work has been seen on ABC, Freeform, NBC, USA, Sci-Fi, YouTube Red, Facebook Watch, Universal TV. List goes on and on and on. Your studio features include Jason Bourne and the upcoming film, The Jansen Directive, as well as indie films Plus One, Adventure Force 5, and Saving Zoe. All I know have great recognition. And so we're looking forward to having you on the show. We focus on this show as far as sales. And I can't think of anything harder than having to pitch a script in Hollywood, right? And so let's start there. Like, how do you, I mean, there's so much that goes into even before the pitch, but how do you even pitch a script and sell yourself? How do you sell a script and sell yourself, right?
Well, that's the multi-million-dollar question, I suppose. First of all, thank you both for having me on. I'm excited to have this conversation with you guys. It's a good question. How do you sell a show and how do you sell yourself? I think, first of all, inherently it's a very subjective business, right? Creativity it often ends up being a very subjective business. But at the end of the day, you also have to think about what is a good sort of commercial concept that you can sort of pitch up the chain. And then it's interesting. The more I think about entertainment specifically from a sales perspective, the job of selling the concept sort of never ends. You pitch the script to an executive or producer. They then have to pitch it to a dozen other people, from directors to talent to other executives to financiers or buyers or networks or studios, whatever it may be. Once it's made, they have to pitch it to either advertisers, depending on the network, or, at least sort of pitching to their audience, right? So there's constantly, it's sort of a never-ending series of selling the idea. So from the start, you really need to think about what is that basic concept that people are going to get excited about, that's going to resonate with people? Why is that a story worth sharing today? Why is it something that will hopefully not just stand out in this exact moment, since these projects often take years to come together, but why down the line are people going to be excited about this in a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now? So it's a lot of sales, sort of right from the start.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it comes down to what is the general idea, right? I mean, what is the creative? That's the content is king, as everyone says. So you need to come up with an original concept with creative characters, that feel dynamic and deep and relatable on some level, even if they're not necessarily the good guys. And ultimately, what is the purpose of your project? If it's a horror movie, is it actually scary? If it's a comedy, are you making people laugh? If it's a drama, does it have those great kind of heart-pounding dramatic moments? So it's a lot to think about from the very start, but it starts with just a seed of an idea, and it may take a long time to build from there, but that it starts just with that.
Yeah.
We're talking about how you sell yourself first. I think to at the beginning, how do you, in sales, identifying your targets and getting to the right people is one of the major things that any good salesperson sits down and really thinks about and analyzes and has to work. How do you identify the correct people, number one, and then probably the even harder piece is how do you get in front of them?
Right. How do you get the meeting? How do
you get that meeting? How do you make that make them realize that there's something that you've got, because obviously it's a very cutthroat industry.
Yeah.
But because
Well,
we've all heard the stories. I don't mean to interrupt you, David, but we've all heard the stories or seen it on TV. You know, the person who's sitting in the waiting room of ABC for 27 days, waiting for the person to walk out and sell their script for 10 seconds, right? Like, how do you actually get in the door? That's a great question, right?
That's a good question. Well, I think that there are a million ideas out there, and people are getting pitched, 2, 3, 4, 5 new concepts a day, every day. So you need to find a way to stand out in some capacity. And you need to know what your strengths and what your weaknesses are. So I think if you are coming into it as a brand new, say, writer, and you want to sell yourself and sell your concept, then you may need to think about, I, as a complete stranger who this person doesn't know, what am I bringing to the table beyond a good idea? Because I think at the end of the day, a good idea on its own doesn't sell on its own. You need to sort of think about what sort of guarantees can I provide with my project and with myself that will ensure whoever it is I'm pitching to that they can trust that I have a good handle on what it is that I'm asking you to pay me to do.
Yeah.
So if you're a brand new writer, that could be, something as like, going to grad school and studying screenwriting at a good writing school just to show you have some, grasp of the of writing. But it also could be, there's a million different sort of screenwriting competitions. So gaining awards or some sort of recognition from someone to show that you have some capacity to actually execute on whatever it is you're trying to sell.
Actually be in the room, right? So you have to kind of grow your credibility so you can maybe be in the room. But now let's say you're in the room, right? So I want to talk about, because you talked about what's the basic concept that will resonate with people, right? And so the story goes that if you have an opportunity to talk to Warren Buffett, I don't know if this is true or not, but this is what I hear, you have 30 seconds to pitch your idea. And so I would imagine that a Hollywood, is the same way. So when you have this basic concept, right? Because sales is all about the first couple of minutes. How are you? I agree with you. What's the basic concept? What's your messaging? How do you sell yourself? How do you articulate to make something complicated simple? But what's that first 30 seconds of the meeting where you really have to get your point across? I want to know the pressure and the energy of that.
Well, most of the time when you're going in to pitch something, you end up having anywhere from, usually a pitch will run 10 minutes to 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You have that amount of time to get your concept across. And then there's questions, and sometimes it goes longer, but generally speaking, if someone's coming in to pitch me something, I'm expecting to hear something for about 15 minutes. That being said, as you just pointed out, you really have about a minute to grab their attention.
Right.
And if in that first 60 seconds, they're already tuning out and are not already immediately grabbed in by it and are leaning in, then you've sort of potentially lost your chance of selling it right from the start. So
what are the one, two, or three secrets of like what you want, what you do, and or what you need to hear in that first pitch? Because I think sales is sales, and it can be applied to salespeople in any industry.
Well, I think that first of all, you need to know who it is that you're pitching to and what are their needs. Because at the end of the day, you're fulfilling something that you're providing an opportunity that they are looking for, right? I'm not going to go to Comedy Central and pitch them some heavy drama. I'm going to pitch them a comedy show. So if you go to Comedy Central, if in that first few seconds, if you are aware of what it is that they are attempting to do, and you're immediately demonstrating that you are able to provide that for them, then that's the first step. So I think that's really the key. It comes down on many levels of sort of knowing who your buyer is, and also having some sort of personal connection to them. They always say in Hollywood, it's who you know. And to a large degree, that's very true. So the more that you know the people that you're selling to, the more that they will be able to share exactly what it is that they are looking to buy. And you can provide that, you can show them within the first few seconds, ideally, that, yesterday we had this conversation saying you're looking for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
This is X, Y, and Z. I'm giving you exactly what it is that you're looking to buy. And I think that, there are many different strategies in terms of how to do that. But I think I think the sales approach of sort of a shotgun approach to sales is not necessarily the most useful way to go about it, because you need to really target who it is that are your buyers for this concept. What is it that you're giving to them that's exactly what they're looking for?
Yeah. I think it's kind of funny because I feel like people, in sales, people are out there, they're grinding, they're pounding the street, and it takes them a lot of time to, gain traction, gain success, depending on what business that it may be in. I think there's a misconception, with, anybody, in Hollywood, actor, producer, writer, all of a sudden they're, in these movies or producing these movies, or you're doing Jason Bourne. And I think the misconception is, oh man, they just hit it. And they're all of a sudden here on the scene and super successful. Well, what's the before that happens piece like, and everyone, in sales, being positive, is a huge thing, and not getting discouraged. What does that look like in your world as far as how you start, and like what was the first thing that you did, and kind of the progression to get to where you are a little bit, if you can lay that out?
Yeah, well, ultimately, I think for everyone in Hollywood, they're looking, it's an interesting business, because you could come up with a concept that you pitch that, you sell it, and that is your job for the next 20, 30 years, and you're ridiculously successful and wealthy off of that one concept. If you're pitching something like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, or, some major hit of a show, then you need that one thing. So, but for the vast majority of people, 99% of projects that get made, that's not going to happen. So it's always about, the building blocks to get to wherever it is that you want to be. You need to start someplace. So in Hollywood, on my end of things, being a producer and a development executive, you need to sort of build that foundation of a career and those relationships within Hollywood. How do you do that? There's many different ways, but a great way to start is by working at a talent agency, because you sort of have your hand in every single different department or different level of the industry. And so within that, you can network, across Hollywood, across the entertainment business, and you can get to know people. You can start to gain more of an understanding of how the business works. And from there, as you're moving up, one of the reasons that I came actually to Studio 71, where I'm at right now, is because initially we were making somewhat smaller shows. We were making short form digital series for emerging digital platforms. And I came in with the idea that, I'm building the foundation of my career. I'm trying to sort of gain a couple credits, gain some experience, so that come a few years later, I can then use that experience to sort of demonstrate that I have the ability to produce quality content. And we've been able to successfully do that, fortunately, which has led to doing bigger movies, doing bigger shows, working with more experienced or more, award-winning, more prestigious individuals within the entertainment industry. And each project just leads sort of to the next one. Obviously, I hope that every project turns into some, 7-season hit on TV that's winning awards and stuff. But most of the time that won't be the case. So this project hopefully will lead to the next one, which will lead to the next one. And ideally, it's a marathon. Ideally, by the end of it, you'll get there.
What you're talking about, I think one of the things that a lot of business people and salespeople where they fall short is consistency, right? Never giving up. You got to call somebody 17 times before they call you back. You got to reach out to them 50 times before they'll even reach back. You have to, and I think your career, your profession, where you are, you have to have moxie, follow up, consistency.
Yeah.
Like you just can't stop. I mean, and so because your continuum is so long, so just talk about, if you can, David, how you continually and on a daily basis persevere and attack consistency and follow up. Because I feel like a lot of people who get into your business, they have this dream, they have these ideas, they have this creativity, but sometimes it could take, you hear the random story of one person going to Hollywood and, getting out of their car and making it. But most people you hear, it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years in the making, right? And so how do you keep going when everything seems dark, but you got to keep on planting those seeds?
That's a good question too.
We only ask good questions here.
It really just takes perseverance, and I think it does also come down to sort of having a clear understanding of both a combination of what I had said earlier, of knowing your strengths and weaknesses and having those building blocks set up. So if you are able to, coming into the business, if you're saying, okay, I understand I'm a brand new writer, I'm a brand new producer, I don't have the experience to necessarily convince some studio to give me $100 million or $200 million to produce this movie. I need to build that experience, right? So you need to start someplace, and you can do that by creating some really small original content. As a writer or as a director, I always give the advice to young aspiring writers and directors that if that's what it is you want to do, then the best way to start is to write and direct. Now, if you want to someday be directing the next Star Wars movie, that doesn't mean you have to find your own, multi-million-dollar project and go and shoot that in your backyard. But it means you can direct. Everyone can direct. Everyone can be a writer today. Everyone can be a filmmaker these days. Everyone has a phone, has a camera on their phone. You can actually make good original content. And if you're able to show to someone that you have the skills and the ability to make something good, then ideally that next thing that you make will be bigger than the previous one. And the next project will be bigger than that, so long as you continue to demonstrate that you have the ability to do so with success. Yeah. Which is why the film festival route, to many levels, that's why it exists. So that you can make a lower budget project, a great short film, something like that you get a couple buddies together and make something. And then if you submit that to Sundance or Tribeca or South by Southwest, all these great film festivals, then and you can gain some, attention from that, and you are able to network, and people are excited to see your small short film that you were able to do on a budget with your friends and asking for a bunch of favors, then ideally that will lead to something that's slightly bigger. Yeah. So it really is about just the trajectory of your entire career, because your first idea is not going to be your last idea, ideally.
Right. And I hear you talking about, creating an experience, throughout this whole conversation. It's something that, great salespeople do. How are you, just to kind of throw COVID in there, with all this going on, how has your life changed, and how have you kind of pivoted to put yourself in a position to still be able to, pitch in the way that you were before without necessarily always being in the room, with the other people, to be able to give them, the full picture and your personality?
Can I add one thing to that, Jeff? Because
no, I'm sorry.
Because one of the things you said earlier, David, is you're pitching a deal that doesn't actually come to life for 2 to 3 years. And so with COVID now, and you're pitching ideas, you're pitching not just for next week, but something that won't even be seen for a year or two, when hopefully this pandemic is over, but it's going to change so many things in our culture for the next 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on the creative end of it, there are a lot of people pitching COVID-related projects these days, or putting things in a COVID-friendly world, or, I'll read a script that starts out, it's a post-COVID world, or it's the end of the pandemic, or something like that. So I think, again, people are sort of trying to speak to the times in a relatable way, hoping that it will get made in the next year or so. But pitching a project, always, you just always know that it's going to take some time to come together. So it's, on one hand, it adds a lot of challenges, because even if you have that 10 to 20 minutes to pitch a project, I'm not doing it over Zoom. Instead of going into the room and having an hour in a conference room where everyone's having coffees and you're kind of just chatting for the first 5-10 minutes, it's a little less comfortable to do that on a Zoom necessarily than if you're all together in the room. So I think even more so, you need to be able to grab their focus very quickly. I think the 60 seconds you may have had if you're pitching someone in a conference room gets cut down to 20 seconds, because not only are you trying to get them to listen to your idea, even though they just heard maybe 4 more earlier that morning, but you're also now competing with their children in the other room. Their dog is barking. They're also looking at their computer, so they're reading their emails. So you need to convince them that you have all these distractions around you. Focus over here. So I think, again, a way to do that is to dive right in, or, again, with a couple jokes. It really depends on what it is. There have been projects that, a big thing in development is packaging, right? So if we find a great concept, I have a great script, I have a great writer, then that alone, again, a good idea, sometimes in Hollywood, is a dime a dozen. So I need to go in with sort of the tools to show that they should invest in this project, and they should do it quickly because someone else is going to want to. So part of doing that is coming in with a team of people that are going to sort of provide all the different tools of whatever it is you're trying to make. So you package a project by attaching a director beforehand, or coming in with a big celebrity or something like that. If we can come, I've done some projects with some actors that are, very popular. And so as soon as they're logging onto the Zoom, then all of a sudden, believe me, everyone's focused and everyone's attention is right there. Or if you're coming in with a director and they're able to show some visuals, which in many ways is actually a lot easier on a Zoom, you can kind of, you already have them staring at the screen. Yeah. So now with tools like Zoom and everything, you're able to sort of give a presentation in sometimes an easier way than asking them to look at this printed out flyer and hand them around, and now you're losing their attention anyway. So I think it's even more so important that you're holding their attention from start to finish.
Yeah. I think that's really important what you said about. My last question before we go into the speed round, David, is how much prep time goes into any presentation, right? In sales, we talk about prepping, doing the research, getting the team together, strategize, talking about who's going to be in the room, who plays what role, role play out the meeting, role play out questions. How much prep time goes into any pitch, whether it's a 10-minute, 15-minute meeting, a 5-minute Zoom? Talk a little bit about how you prep, how you role play, how you really just kind of, get the team ready to go.
It's weeks to months of preparation before a pitch. Because not only are you needing to demonstrate that you can, or convey to someone what the creative is and get them to understand and buy into whatever that creative pitch may be, but then there's also the salesmanship end of it, of are you sort of holding their attention? Are you keeping their focus? So that even if you have a great idea, they might zone out after 2 minutes. So are you able to find a way to get across your idea, and keep them focused. So sometimes it's taken months of painstaking work of pitching, of doing a practice pitch, and then giving some notes and suggestions of, I feel it'd be a little clearer if we talked about the characters before we get into the story. And for each project, depending on what the idea is, it varies. So there's no one real right or 100% consistent way of pitching an idea, because each idea is different. So it takes a lot of work. And at the end of a practice pitch, once we feel, okay, we've hit every note, there's no dead air in this pitch, there's nothing that really doesn't belong here. Every single sentence provides some other either hook or something to this concept.
Yeah.
And we do go over a lot of, as a producer, as an executive, I sort of get to wear both hats, because I have people coming to me to pitch concepts all the time. And then I then work with them and develop the idea and package the idea, and then I sell it to someone else.
So cool.
And then ultimately, I think part of that 10, 20-minute pitch is that it needs to be something that can be then repitched by whoever you're selling it to within 60 seconds or 2 minutes. Are you giving them enough information so that they can clearly go and tell the next person, here's what someone just tried to sell me, and this is why I think we like it. They're not going to give the same 10 to 20-minute pitch that they prepped for months to tell their boss or tell the next studio executive or whatever it may be. They're going to hear your 15-minute pitch, turn it into a 60-second soundbite, and go and try to sell that. So you really need to make sure that you're giving them great little kind of sound bites and a really clear picture of what it is that you're trying to make.
Yeah. I love everything that you're talking about. I mean, the discipline, the resilience in your industry that's needed, the discipline, the hard work, the tenacity, the vision, the forecasting, how you need to look ahead, rewind kind of an idea of what people want to see 2-3 years from now, and then pitch, today. It applies to everything in sales. And I think sales in general is hard. And what you do, I think, is really, really challenging. So I applaud your success and your tenacity and everything you've done to grow your business. All right, quick speed round, right? But first, a quick shout out to your sister, right, who introduced us to you, Rachel. Thank you very much. Okay, so quick speed round. Quick speed round. Okay, so she has wait, hold on. Your sister has a quick question. Do you give a written summary of the pitch when you pitch the idea, so they have the ability to summarize it appropriately too?
Sometimes we do.
Okay.
Oftentimes we'll try to, I pitched an animated show just the other day. So as soon as we were done with the pitch, on one hand, I didn't want to give them a full 7-page document of what our pitch was, because I didn't want for them to pass that along, and all of a sudden now whoever it is that they're now trying to sell the same concept to has to read a 7-page document. I'd almost rather have them give that 2-minute or 60-second sort of elevator pitch of the concept to be more attention grabby. So what we did was ended up sending them a very abbreviated version of the pitch with the artwork that we had prepared ahead of time, so that it is more attention grabbing, and they're not sitting and reading a 7-page document and deciding off of that, having that. Essentially.
All right, I love it. All right, first question in the speed round, David. One thing you learned about yourself in post-COVID.
Post-COVID, I thrive on experiences with other people. I've found, so getting to do things on Zoom to me is different, but I still like it a lot.
What's your favorite movie genre?
Probably dramedy, like a drama comedy hybrid.
Favorite dramedy?
Harold and Maude. It's an older one.
So, okay, oldie but goodie. All right, favorite book?
Zen, or what's it called? Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Okay. All right, good.
Favorite other movie?
Favorite other movie?
Just any movie.
Dumb and Dumber.
That is a great movie.
That's a great movie.
That is a great movie. It's a great movie.
I love it.
That was fun.
All right, last question. A piece of advice that you would give somebody graduating college today who wants to get into your field?
Come in with an open mind, knowing that it takes a while. There are specific, I think, steps to build that foundation of your career. And despite as much as people say, you know, there's no one way to enter the business, there really are a couple more sort of common ways to build that foundation of a career, and you should follow those paths. Work at a talent agency, work in a management company, start in a mailroom, be an assistant, work your way up, because it gives you the experience and the network in order to build the career that probably you want to have.
It's great.
Great.
David, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you if they want to connect with you.
If you'd like, I'm on LinkedIn. David Devries is my name, Devries. And you can also you can message me there. I think that's probably the best route.
Okay.
I'll check that regularly, and yeah.
Good. Well, I appreciate you taking time to be on the show. You talked about a lot of great stuff, you know, how to sell yourself, you know, understanding what basic concepts are and how they resonate with people, you know, how to stand out, how to grab somebody's attention, understanding the art of pitching people, you know, the foundation of your business and building relationships and getting out there and networking, building the foundation of your career, you know, how you're showcasing, pitching your talents, grabbing people's focus, preparing for a pitch. I mean, all things that apply to all salespeople. So I appreciate your time, and it's great meeting you. And I'm looking forward, now that I know you, to kind of watch what you're doing, you know, through the years, because you're doing some great stuff. And I appreciate you being on the show. And thanks for sharing a lot of great sales tips for all salespeople, no matter what they're doing or no matter what position they're in. Jeff, I'll let you close.
Yeah, and so I really appreciate you coming on for sure, and showing how sales is relatable to anything. And I think it's such a difficult thing that a lot of people, you know, watching, you know, wouldn't have the chance to or the thought to kind of get into, and you know, seeing how it's relatable in that way is amazing. And I love dramedies. I love Jason Bourne. Loved everything you shared. It was great.
Jason Bourne is great, by the way. We haven't talked about that. It's great.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, this is great, guys. I really appreciate you having me on and your thoughtful questions. And thank you very much. And it was great meeting you both as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. All right. Stay on for just a second when we're done. David, thanks again. Everybody who's listening, thanks very much. If David can help you in any way, reach out to him. If you know somebody who could enjoy this episode, share it with them, and or leave a comment if you want to talk to David. All right, David, thank you very much. Gunsberg, always fun. That was great. Thanks, everybody. All right, talk to you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.